In history, there's a woman whose story went untold. This March on KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing those hidden narratives to light. Hear extraordinary stories of women who transformed science, politics, arts, and community. Women you've never heard of, but should know. Celebrating Women's History Month on KBLA Talk 1580, where every story matters.
Seems like everyone is running from the truth. We just stand up and fight, walk into the night. We're the people, we can do it if we try. I know we can do it. Somebody asked me, why do we have to go through it? It's just a test of our faith. What we're living day to day. We don't know where, we don't know when. Coming back again. Oh, yes, it is. It's late in the evening. Oh, God, it's time for you to return. Oh, me. I know. Time to make a change.
Oh, yes, it is that time to make that change. You are listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and yours truly, Nina Turner. We count it all joy that you are with us on this wonderful, wonderful day to get this party started off right. Dr. West and I will be talking about the 60th year remembrance. I hate to say it's an anniversary, but Bloody Sunday. Dr. West and I need to get into this and draw some contours here. And let's think about what has happened in this country 60 years later. And yes, by now, everyone should know that Representative Al Green was censured in that Congress, and that 10 Democrats actually voted along with the Republicans to censor their own colleague, if you will, trying to understand how and why that happened. So Dr. West and I, we will surely give you our opinion about that. We're going to opine on all of that. But we're going to bring the doctor in. The doctor's in the house, the one and only Dr. Cornel West. Doc, what is on your heart, your mind, and your soul today? Oh, we might be having a little technical difficulties at this moment. I don't think that Dr. West is hearing the show. So while we work out those technical difficulties, let's talk about the fact that Congressman Al Green was censored. Makes no sense to me. Many of you, or those of you who had the opportunity to watch the joint address that President Trump gave to both the House and the Senate within that Congress, you know, that Representative Al Green, well, he stood up and said some things. And the things that he was talking about saving Medicaid for poor people in this country, really making it known that what the Trump administration and the GOP is attempting to do to further marginalize poor people was not going to stand. Unfortunately, he was the only one. Doc, we got you now?
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. I think that look like the repressive apparatus is operating on so many different levels. It's not just at Columbia University attacking my dear brother Mahmoud Khalil, and of course we can connect that to the Bloody Sunday, what you got the repressive agents back in the 1960s going at for. But how you doing? It's a blessing to see you. But no, what's on my mind is that the Trump gangsterization is thickening every day, and as I sit right here on 123rd Street, and I can just feel the spirits of what's going on there at Columbia, at Barnard, as you know, these ugly, ugly attacks on these folk. And all they're trying to do is raise the issue of 20,000 babies, precious Palestinian babies killed, over 50,000 killed. Anybody who kills an innocent person, any group that kills an innocent person is a terrorist. Terrorism is the killing of innocent people. They were killing innocent folk in Alabama. That was a terrorism of the Klan. Any group that kills innocent folk are terrorists. Any organized group that does that are terrorists. And you have to have a moral consistency here. And of course, we're dealing with a moment in which they've already cut off all the aid in Gaza. They cut off the electricity this weekend. That's genocide all over again. And we have to be honest and candid about that. You get in trouble, you get called an anti-Semite. No, I would say the same thing if it was happening to precious Jewish brothers and sisters. I would say the same thing if it was happening to white brothers and sisters. But it tends to happen with Palestinian, black folk, tends to happen with Africans, tends to happen those who, as Curtis Mayfield said, are darker than hue. Because you got white supremacy operating. Everybody knows that if those Palestinians right now were white, or if they were Israeli, the U.S. policy would be exactly the opposite. That's why Trump says what? He's in solidarity with white farmers in South Africa, right? Must say a genocide happening against them. They less than 10% of the population, got over 70% of the land, and yet they get critiqued, they get pressure on them, and all of a sudden they got deep solidarity. That's white supremacy, pure and simple. And that's what we're dealing with. Unvarnished racism connected to greed. And then you got folk who are so cowardly they don't want to tell the truth about it. And unfortunately, those who raise their voices like Brother Mahmoud and others get attacked. That's what we're dealing with. And that's what Selma was also about. Who's going to raise their voice in the face of American terrorism? That's what was happening in the South. That's what's happening in Gaza. That's what happened in other parts around the world.
Yeah. And it's universal, Doc. I mean, those who are in power think that they have the ultimate authority to do what they want to do when they want to do. I mean, there's a quote, and I don't know who said this, but maybe somebody in our fantastic audience will let us know. But absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Ooh, that's Lord Acton.
Lord Acton, brother. Yes, and it's true.
Full of insight. Full of insight.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that it is true. Human nature has the capacity to be extraordinarily good, loving, kind, restorative. It also has the opposite ability to be cruel, to be evil, to be mean, to destroy, to hurt, to cause pain. And certainly when we think about Bloody Sunday, that is the case. And when we think about what is happening in the Gaza, the Congo, Yemen, I mean, you name the country, Haiti, I mean, wherever there are oppressed people. And so people have got to speak up, Doc. And the part about the South African farmer, I mean, that really took me for a loop. I just got to tell you this. They come in. Yeah, it is. I mean, the Dutch come in and try to take over the land from the Black Africans who were already there.
That's right.
And even after apartheid ended, still, as you just laid out, they still got the majority of the land, and Black Africans are still the poorest in their own country.
Their own country.
And that ain't right.
The same is true with reparations. That in reparations, in the history of the United States, it's the slaveholders who got reparations.
That's
not
right.
our great-great-grandmothers, not our great-great-grandfathers. That's how sick white supremacy is, rooted in this predatory capitalist obsession with profit, and will do anything to put profit over human beings. That's what Truth Time is all about, trying to be morally consistent, to keep track of the humanity of everybody, beginning with the least of these. That has to do with those folks whose backs are against the wall. And that's very much what we're dealing with now, with this tremendous activity happening here at Columbia and Barnard. And of course, it spills over because the universities as a whole, there's no doubt that Trump's gangsterism is targeting higher education across the board. They're afraid of the truth.
Yeah. And he's doing the things that he said he was not going to do. He is using his power in a very corrupt and abusive way. He said he wasn't going to do that because he said he was the victim of it under the Biden administration, that he was going to restore freedom of speech, et cetera, et cetera. And here he is doing the exact opposite. You are listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner. When we come forward, we will continue this riveting conversation.
This is Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner.
Many of the 39 BLM grassroots chapters across the nation are participating in this honoring of the memory of Breonna Taylor on the anniversary of her death. This BLMLA event is taking place on Sunday, March 16th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Norman Houston Park, 4800 South La Brea in Los Angeles, the park at the summit. For special parking options and more information, visit blmla.org or go to BLM Los Angeles on Instagram. Say her name, Breonna Taylor, and join us in loving on Black women. Happy Women's History Month from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out. Individual results may vary. Consult a doctor prior to use.
If you've struggled to lose weight in the past, this important message is for you because you could lose as much as 50 pounds or more with Zelfie. Zelfie makes it easy and affordable to get weight loss treatment 100% online. Zelfie providers can prescribe FDA-approved GLP-1 weight loss medications clinically shown to help people lose weight like Wegovy, Zepbound, and others. Plus, help get the medication covered by insurance so it's as little as $0 a month.
The doctors are super helpful, and the meds have been a game changer. It's the first program I've had success with. Before Zelfie, I was unable to lose weight, even though I was eating healthy and exercising 6 days a week. Zelfie helped me not only lose weight, but I feel so much better.
Text GOAL to 200-300 to get started today with Zelfie and see if weight loss medications like Wegovy or Zepbound are right for you. Don't wait. Text now for a link to your exclusive offer. Text GOAL to 200-300. That's GOAL to 200-300. GOAL to 200-300.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
Slow it down, get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
To thine own self be true. More of Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner coming your way right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
So happy, just showing gratitude that you've all come forward with us to discuss these very timely and important topics, not just in American history, but also in world history itself. So Doc, the Bloody Sunday, it was March 7th through 25th, 1965, 60 years since Bloody Sunday, where you had folks marching from Selma to the state capital of Montgomery. It was a very peaceful march. We know that Representative John Lewis and so many others, and we bring him up because he was such a strong giant in the Congress, and one of my favorite quotes from him, making good trouble. And he considered himself very much making good trouble. And there is a such thing as trouble in the waters and making good trouble. And that is what he and his contemporaries did. So 60 years after that, I mean, really, have we learned anything? It was a peaceful march across that bridge. You have Governor George Wallace, who was the governor of Alabama at that time. He was a racist. He was a white supremacist. He was a segregationalist. And he directed the state troopers to attack those peaceful, let's emphasize again, peaceful marchers. Got to emphasize peaceful, because when it comes to Black folks, there is this misnomer that's already in the imagination that somehow Black people are more violent and or less deserving of dignity, our humanity not really recognized to the same level of our white sisters and brothers, unfortunately, in this country, socialized that way. Peaceful, I'm emphasizing again, even though they had a First Amendment right back to walk across that bridge and to do the things that they were doing. But yet this governor decided it was not going to happen on his watch. And he had the state troopers come after them, hitting them with billy clubs and just doing all manner of evil, wounding people. Certainly Congressman John Lewis wore that scar. Other people upon, and this should not be lost on anybody. Black folks who are paying tax dollars were dispatched to hurt these Black people who were peacefully protesting for voting rights, for dignity, for the uplift of Black Americans in the United States of America. That's what I just think. I mean, have we learned anything 60 years later? And I know that a lot has changed, but the more things that change, the more they stay the same. Black people still have do not have the highest, we have the least amount of wealth. Let me put it that way. We have the least amount of wealth than any other group in the United States of America, even to this day. And so economically, socially, politically, Black people as a whole are still suffering despite the gains and despite the hard work of many of those who are in the ancestral planes. But some of those folks are still walking the face of this earth. 60 years is not that long ago when you think about history as a continuum. 60 years can be compared to just yesterday, Doc.
But the thing is, though, my dear sister, it's very important to always remember those who came before, who were courageous, who were willing to live and die in dignity and integrity. And that is, in fact, all of those who made that march in 1965, the John Lewis's, the Martin Kings, the Diane Nash's and James Lawson's and Rabbi Heschel's and others. But it's a superficial spectacle when you do it 60 years later. It doesn't take a lot of courage to walk that bridge 60 years later, especially when you're tied to a Democratic Party that had a chance to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and didn't do it. Yet you get up there and give speeches about how crucial and how significant it is. No, you still own the Democratic Party plantation where you won't violate what the boss wants. And that's exactly what you have with most of those folk who's marching. It was moving to see Brother Jesse, of course, in that wheelchair, because he's been critical, even as he's a member of the party, he's been critical of the folk in the party because they didn't have enough courage to fight when they could have to pass the bill, let alone the George Floyd bill. But also in 1965, you see, you had Martin, you had Stokely Carmichael and the others who were in solidarity with other folk who were struggling. Now, when I talked about my dear brother Mahmoud Khalil, who was forced into his house with his wife, who was pregnant 8 months now, who is a U.S. citizen, they tell him that you are going to be detained. He said, no, I got a green card. He said, it doesn't make any difference. We are suspending your green card. That's a permanent card that allows you to stay in the country. So that's not just violation of law, that's outright repression. That's the Trump gangsterism, the neo-fascism that's intensifying. So if you can't see the relation between what was happening 60 years ago in fighting terrorism and what's going on now fighting the repression, then the march itself becomes this little isolated, superficial spectacle of folks who want to be seen on TV acting as if they second cousin of Martin Luther King Jr. No, that's not it at all. We must remember, I was glad to see Martin Luther King Jr. III. Yeah. He remembers in that crucial way, yes. But if you can't fight against your own party when you have a chance to pass the voting rights bill and can't say a mumbling word about the repression going on with those who are raising their voices against genocide in Gaza, then what kind of leadership are we talking about? It's hollow, it's shallow, it's vacuous, it's empty.
I couldn't agree more, Doc. And it's remembrance for what, though?
Exactly.
You know, there has to be a for what.
It's got to be connected to resistance in the present.
That's it. And I think that is what is lost. And a lot of these people, and some are very well-meaning. You know, you've named people that we really care about, we got relationship with. Not talking about them. I want to put this in the parking lot. But the whole global rationale,
right,
or the communal rationale for the remembrance. That's because the people, both known names and unknown names of crusaders who were willing to walk across that bridge. You know, a lot of those civil rights activists knew that when they went to do demonstrations, that they might not come back. Like they understood that. Can you imagine being on your assignment, on like your God-given assignment, and knowing that every day that you went on assignment, you might not make it back? Many of them, they knew that, and they were going at this thing with their whole heart, soul, and mind. And so to be 60 years later and have folks just walking across the bridge for symbolism, when you got folks who died, who were maimed for it, who lost their livelihood for it. I mean, what are we doing, Dr. West? This makes no sense to me at all.
I agree. Definitely. I agree with you. Very much so. And it's true though, you got Brother Sharpton who always shows up, and he's been consistent in terms of him speaking out against police murder and police brutality. But it's not the same with Black Lives Matter with Sister Melina and them who are out there every day, every week, and consistent in terms of being willing to have a critique, a systematic critique of the repressive apparatus, not just isolated cases. So I give Sharpton a certain credit, but he's not at the deepest level of the Black Lives Matter grassroots. I'm talking about grassroots. I'm not talking about the incorporated ones hanging out, drinking tea in the cocktail rooms and so forth. I'm talking about the folk on the ground like Melina Abdullah and the others. So that, but we have to just be honest, and we got to be candid about these things. See, we live in such perilous times that this is the moment in which we test our souls and characters and find out who we really are. And this is not the time for just posing and posturing and acting as if you going through some symbolic gesture or some spectacle when you got all of this repression coming at us, the raw fascism that we seeing more and more coming out of the Trump administration. No, we got to be for real.
That's it. And so it's time out for that. Symbols mean a lot, but they got to be wrapped in substance. Ooh. Symbols without substance don't mean anything. And I think that's really what we're trying to get across. It's not that symbols are bad, but they got to have some substance linked to them. And we're trying to get to the substance part of this remembrance, why we should never, ever forget what has happened to us as a people on this soil and the challenges beyond chattel slavery that we have had to face. Doc, you and I talk a lot about slavery by another name. It wasn't just that legal chattel slavery. It was Jim and Jane Crow, as you named. It was the Black codes. It was Black folks constantly kept at bay so that they could not grow their community socially, economically, politically. It is all the things that people must seriously ask themselves. Why is it that the Black community has the lowest amount of generational wealth than any other group? There are only two reasons. One, you would have to say that Black Americans are not pulling their weight, that somehow it is on Black Americans. Or two, you would have to say it's systemic. There is no middle ground when it comes to this. And when you have generation after generation of not just holding down, but keeping in chattel slavery, then you have Jim Crow, and then you have almost every advancement that Black people have made in this country, and we have made many, that there's always a backlash against that advancement. And we are living in real time with that backlash. And one other point, Doc, about the symbol and not the substance. You have generation. My generation, Gen X, was really the first generation, depending on where you are in the Gen X, that was born without legalized racism. Meaning, and I was having this conversation with Dr. Cosby about this. But then when the millennials really were the absolute, after the Gen Xers, like absolute free and clear, not legal racism, meaning, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, and all those things. But now we're at a point in time where that stuff is being turned back. So when you have symbol and not substance, you have a whole generation that has no connection. Gen X is the only generation that still has a connection to the folks who are actually on that bridge. We're getting generations removed. And so when you got people just posturing, it makes it harder for the younger generation to understand why the Edmund Pettus Bridge, why Bloody Sunday is important.
Absolutely. And it makes it harder for the younger generation to understand what spiritual and moral greatness really is in terms of service to the people, rather than narcissism and hedonism and individualism and their own personal success tied to their agendas, tied to their brand as opposed to their cause. But it's also true too that in the last 40 years, there's been wage stagnation, and the levels of greed that's been at work among the ruling classes, and the various attacks and assaults on poor and working people's capacity to gain access to resources. There's been resources available in programs, but not in the form of jobs, not in the form of employment, not in the forms of sustaining people's stability. And that's because of a capitalist system that is so wrought with not just obsession with short-term profit, but corruption and more money hemorrhaged at the top, and then taking money from poor and working people and giving it to the well-to-do.
That's it. And the whole notion of welfare and thumbing down your nose on the least of these in this country, when corporate welfare is a thing.
Absolutely.
On the dime.
Absolutely. Look at all the federal contracts with all of the major corporate entities and monopolies and so forth. You see, but no, when it comes to subsidizing poor folk, we gotta balance the budget. We have to have austerity. It's the logic of a capitalist economy, and it's the logic of an imperial entity that is obsessed with short-term gain and power. And it has spiritual and moral consequences, and it doesn't make it possible. It makes it more difficult for people to gain access to what genuine moral and spiritual greatness is, and that is serving others.
Serving others. Doc, when we come forward, hold that thought. When we come forward, we will continue our dialogue. You are listening to Truth Time.
The truth will set you free, but first it might raise your blood pressure.
So I'm not driving you, baby.
More of Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. The Los Angeles Police Department is investigating officers caught on secret recordings making racist, sexist, and homophobic remarks, including against African Americans. A complaint claims Sergeant Denny John led the talk with no intervention from his superior. Black Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison is pushing back against calls for President Trump to pardon Derek Chauvin, who was convicted of George Floyd's murder. Ellison says a pardon would deeply hurt Floyd's family, but Chauvin's state conviction would still stand. President Trump recently said he's not considering it. Washington, D.C. is starting work to remove a Black Lives Matter mural. The move comes after a GOP bill threatened to cut city funding if it stayed. The project will take 6 to 8 weeks. And thousands gathered in Selma, Alabama to mark 60 years since Bloody Sunday, honoring the 1965 march that led to the Voting Rights Act, which banned racial discrimination in voting. Black House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries led a bipartisan delegation. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classrooms today? Join at thinkitup.org.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The UCLA women's basketball team is back at number 1 in the Associated Press Top 25 poll. UCLA returned to number 1 after Sunday's win over USC for the Big Ten Conference Tournament Championship. The Bruins, 30-2, were number 1 for 12 weeks until they lost to USC on February 13th. The Trojans and Bruins are at combined 58-5. The rest of the top 5 this week: South Carolina, UConn, USC, and Texas. The Chargers signed linebacker Khalil Mack to a 1-year deal for $18 million. The 34-year-old Mack was a free agent. Mack had 6 sacks last season and missed only 1 game. NFL Hall of Fame running back Eddie George is leaving Tennessee State to coach Bowling Green University. George was at Tennessee State for 4 years. He led the HBCU school to the Division I AA playoffs last season and was the Coach of the Year in the Ohio Valley Conference. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
A new day is on the horizon.
Behind every great moment in history, there's a woman whose story went untold. This March on KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing those hidden narratives to light. Hear extraordinary stories of women who transformed science, politics, arts, and community. Women you've never heard of, but should know. Celebrating Women's History Month on KBLA Talk 1580, where every story matters.
I feel so alone. I'm embarrassed to talk about it.
How can I help my kid if I can't help myself?
I can't remember when I wasn't stressed.
I don't like inside.
When you feel overwhelmed by your thoughts and emotions, it's okay to get help. You are not alone. CalHope is here for you with free, safe, and confidential mental health resources for youth, young adults, families, and you. Find support now at calhope.org.
LA property owners, join us to house more veterans. By accepting veteran housing vouchers, you will receive guaranteed rent while providing a stable and safe home that will make a difference in their lives. Help house our heroes. Expedited processing and dedicated support for property owners is available because every veteran deserves a place to call home. Email houseuurvets@lacity.org, HOUSEOURVETS@lacity.org for more information.
Hey, this is Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, and for over 20 years, Parkside Economic Development Corporation has served Leimert Park and surrounding communities, empowering tomorrow's leaders and changing lives. Parkside EDC has awarded over $400,000 in college scholarships while sharing economic principles of the Big Five of money with students and their families. Parkside EDC partners with organizations like the Brotherhood Crusade to assure our youth have the financial acumen to succeed. Parkside EDC provides families and businesses with financial insights, offering free online, on-site, and on-air B-Warp presentations. The Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Programs helps our community acquire, sustain, and pass down legacy wealth. High school seniors can apply for this year's scholarship awards at parksideedc.org. Scholarships will be awarded at Parkside EDC's Gospel/Jazz Brunch on Sunday, April the 27th. For details, tickets, or donations, please visit parksideedc.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is where love and truth meet.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
You're listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner.
Oh, we are so glad that you are here with us today. We count it all joy. If you are just joining us, Dr. West and I are analyzing some situations that are happening. Bloody Sunday, 60 years ago at Menpettus Bridge, and also we'll start our conversation about what happened to Representative Al Green as he stood up in protest during President Trump's joint address, and he lifted up poor people as he stood up in protest, in resistance. Before we get back to that conversation, though, Doc, this is our favorite part of the show, and that's reading some of the comments that are appearing in the YouTube chat. Many thanks to those of you who are watching us live on YouTube and sharing some of your thoughts. And then greater thanks for everybody that is either listening to us in your drive time or on your laptop, and you just decided we're just gonna listen. We're not gonna make any comments. But here we go on YouTube. We have Adanta McCormick, all hearts, purple and red. Thank you so much. We have Dr. Anahita West. Love you, my hero, Dr. West. No one like you in the world. Your courage, your consistency, and your prophetic calling. I wonder if the doctor, is she a little biased there, Doc?
My beloved wife there checking in.
Checking in. I love me some Dr. Anahita West, baby. You better believe it.
I love her.
She is the best. She put 3 hearts, and then she has something for little Sister Turner too. S&T is on fire with flames of truth and courage. Love you, S&T. I love you too, Dr. Anahita West. I appreciate you so much. She's loving on us today. We got B Bell of Bad Dog Bullies. I love that name, B Bell. B Bell of Bad Dog Bullies. Good day, good people. Good day to you as well. Morris Phillips. Hey, Morris, one of our regulars. Happy Monday, Dr. West and Senator Turner. Forensic accountant, legal permanent residence was renewed every 7 years, but I get it. All right, forensic accountant. I don't know what you're getting at, but we let it not be said. We didn't read your comment. And then we have White Rabbit, symbols with substance. Yes, exclamation point. Pastor Harold, great insight. Hi, Pastor Harold. Thank you for joining us today. White Rabbit, that's right, Nina. Great insight. And so on and on and on. So we have many doctors still coming in. Just wanted to shout out some of the folks. We have some regulars in here and also some people who may be just commenting for the first time, but not necessarily joining us for the first time.
Oh, indeed. Well, it's a beautiful thing to know that you got people out there listening. You know, you try not to be just a voice in the wilderness, but the wilderness itself has to be open to the voice.
Yeah.
So it's a two-sided, mutual, reciprocal affair when you're trying to raise your voice and have some kind of impact. On Truth Time, Tell the Truth. That's what 1580 is all about. Tabitha Smiley Talk 1580.
That is indeed what we are all about. So that before we transition into what happened to Representative Al Green, I don't want to just stop our discussion about Bloody Sunday abruptly. Any kind of parting, any other things you want to impart about that moment, maybe not necessarily in comparison to this moment, but how that moment called on people to exhibit immense courage. And everybody has a different assignment. But I also see this moment calling on people to exhibit extraordinary courage as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But that's just true in life in general. I mean, 65 was crucial because it was a year before Stokely Carmichael called for Black Power. And it was a year before they really thoroughly internationalized the movement. King had internationalized it by connecting his nonviolent way of life to Gandhi. There's no doubt about that. The connection between what was happening in India and the struggle for independence in the 1940s was informing the attempt to break the back of American apartheid with Martin King and Lawson and others. But here we are in 2025 at a very different moment, because at that time, the American empire was just beginning to flex its muscles around the world. And Vietnam would of course, smack American empire in the face with the loss. But by 2025, it was clear we're on decline. And Trumpism is a sign of the deep spiritual decay and moral decrepitude of the empire. And so courage is manifest in a different context. You have to be much more internationalist. You have to be much more concerned with solidarity at home and solidarity abroad, so that the kind of moral consistency that you and I talk about all the time, no matter where you are. It could be in Gaza, it can be in Guatemala, it can be in Brazil, it can be in South Africa, it can be in Thailand, it can be in China. You have to have a moral consistency of solidarity with people who are oppressed. And that's a different kind of challenge on a different level, I think, because it requires both analysis and a courage. And because the organizations are much weaker now, there's a likelihood you're out there by yourself sometimes.
Yeah. And people are, in 1965, it was definitely more apparent that your life could be taken so much, more easier probably than today. But there's a such thing as losing your livelihood, where you still alive, but you done lost your livelihood. And just as that was the case in the 1960s, in the 1950s, well, since the Black freedom liberation struggle, period.
From the very beginning.
From the very beginning.
That's right.
Even in this moment, you have an administration that's putting a tax on people's livelihoods. I mean, we saw presidents of universities who went in to testify before Congress. All of a sudden, they're not presidents of universities anymore. The attacks on students who have been standing up for the lives of our Palestinian sisters and brothers, police being weaponized against them by people in suits. People in suits weaponizing, just as Governor Wallace weaponized the state troopers against those marchers on Bloody Sunday. He was in a suit. calling on police force, but the troopers,
that's right,
law enforcement, to bludgeon, to in some places hurt, bludgeon, hurt, you name it, to inflict pain on people who were only marching for their rights. And so the more things stay the same, the more things change, the more they stay the same. We have that same spirit happening today in 2025.
No, that's very real. That's very, very true. Definitely. But I think, again, it's a matter of trying to make these connections. See, we got to connect the dots. We have to be able to see struggles against repression, be it FBI, CIA, ICE, local police. And we have to be able to connect the dots in struggles against economic exploitation. That's why I just love the work that you do with the trade union. The trade union movement is a movement that brings people together, but at its best, it's a critique of the greedy bosses at the top that would rather buy more yachts rather than allow food for working people and their children. But that's just greed, that's avarice. And we had to call it that, but we had to be able to connect these dots such that solidarity becomes more real. The only way we're going to get out of this fascist nightmare is solidarity. That's the only thing we have left. Congress is weak as can be. The courts more and more kowtowing. The media, for the most part, is kowtowing. Thank God for some courageous media people, but we don't have enough. What's left for a fascist takeover across the board? We got to have the people. You have to have solidarity.
Yeah.
And it be one in which the people feel as if they can make a difference rather than just cave in and give in to the wholesale gangsterization of the society.
That's it. You can make a difference. Don't give in to indifference.
That's right.
We need you to make a difference. Yeah, Doc, I'm here in the ATL right now with the UAW Financial Secretaries Conference led by Secretary Treasurer Margaret Mock. And so you bringing up the trade unionists and how important it is. And part of what I said to them, it is important for them as organized labor to organize with those workers who don't have the benefit of organized labor. And we all know what the UAW was able to do in the summer of solidarity under the leadership of President Sean Fain, taking it to the corporate interests. He has went as far as to say billionaires should not exist. In our language, we would say that it is immoral, and that it is. When we come forward, we're going to analyze what happened to Representative Al Green as he stood up for poor people. You are listening to Truth Time.
And Nina Turner on KBLA Talk 1580.
Someone had a birthday.
Yep, 50. Can't believe it.
50 years of wisdom.
Great segue. We have health news, a CDC update.
Pneumococcal vaccination is now recommended for adults 50 or older. Says here, we're over 6 times more likely to be hospitalized with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50.
I don't love those odds.
Same. Look what I found. Pfizer's Prevnar 20 is proven to help protect adults against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease in just 1 dose, and millions have already gotten it.
Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you have a severe allergy to its ingredients. A weakened immune system may lower your response. Common side effects include injection site pain and swelling, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138. Visit Prevnar20.com or talk to your doctor or pharmacist.
I'm on Prevnar20.com now, scheduling my appointment.
Good idea. And happy 50.
KBLA Talk 1580 is pleased to announce that like George and Weezy,
We're moving on now.
earlier this year, we were named as semifinalists for the American Climate Leadership Awards 2025. Wait for it. Wait for it.
You ready?
KBLA Talk 1580 was recently selected as one of 10 finalists being considered for this prestigious award. Hundreds of organizations, institutions, and even cities were nominated in the selection process. But KBLA Talk 1580 has made it to the finals. You're invited to watch live on Wednesday, April 16th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central, as Eco America announces the winner and the runner-up, awarding over $200,000 in prize money. To watch live, just go to ecoamerica.org to register and attend the online ceremony. That's ecoamerica.org. Don't miss the presentation of the American Climate Leadership Awards 2025, Wednesday, April 16th, and wish us luck. Caring about the climate, caring about the community, changing the conversation. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black. Truth shall rise again. You're listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes, you are. And please make sure if you are listening to us, enjoying what you are hearing, share the good news. Share the good news with family, friends, and also frenemies. And make sure if you have not done so, download the KBLA Talk 1580 app so you can go back and you can catch shows that you may have missed. And also wherever you get your podcast, you can listen to Dr. West and I as well. You know, Doc, one of our, I think it was White Rabbit who put in there class warfare, always class warfare. And that really is what this epic fight comes down to. There are racial elements to class warfare, no doubt. And you and I are never afraid to lift that up. But ultimately, it's not a but, this is absolutely about class warfare. I like to say that the original class clash was chattel slavery. That was it. You know, that was the original one. And here we are today still fighting on the class level and pushing back on white supremacy and racism in the United States of America, and just the type of Eurocentric worldview that believes that individualism is better than collective people coming together and fighting together. So Representative Al Green, Doc, they censured him. They made that their business. I wish they would act as fast on increasing the federal minimum wage as they did to censure Representative Al Green, who had the courage to stand up during a joint session of Congress and challenge the president of the United States of America. So a lot of folks said it's uncouth. It's not the way that they do things. And I get decorum, no doubt about it. But when you're talking about an administration that is about to hurt the poor in ways that this administration is about to do so, somebody had to stand up. And I'm glad that Representative Al Green was the one. The Democrats certainly were not ready for this. They left him hanging by himself. It should have been very organized, but it was not. He was the lone voice. And so now he is the one being punished for standing up. When Democrats had the same level of power, I remember Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene arguing with President Biden during his State of the Union address, and Speaker Nancy Pelosi did not censor her. Democrats didn't take a vote to do that. And I'm also old enough to remember when Representative Wilson stood up and said that during President Obama's State of the Union address, called him a liar, said, "You lie." And yet the Democrats let that slide. So now we have folks that want to police behavior, automatically indicting Representative Al Green.
Yeah, Brother Al Green's my kind of brother. No doubt about it. That I was proud of the brother standing up at 77 years old with his stick. And his stick had style. It's almost like the stick that Ron Isley used to wear, used to walk out on before he sang those beautiful ballads. But he's my kind of brother because he had to be true to the righteous indignation in his heart. There's nothing wrong with righteous indignation as long as it has a spiritual content and a moral substance to it. And he couldn't stand what they were talking about in terms of Medicaid, and that was the poor half of the folk in his district depended on Medicaid. And the Democratic Party wasn't going to take a stand. They didn't want to either boycott the event itself, or they didn't want to come up with something more than just these little fans. We've talked about that before. And you're absolutely right, as Tavis and others have noted, that the level of hypocrisy of the House is there. But we shouldn't be surprised. We shouldn't be surprised. But but I think Al Green, he was true to himself. You know, when you're feeling that fire on the inside and you know that the lies hiding the crimes are not being accounted, there's no way of making people accountable who are telling the lies and committing the crimes. Let me put it that way. That you have to do something, and if you don't do anything, the rocks are going to shout out. So I can understand what he did. He's my kind of brother in that sense.
Yeah, I can understand what he did too. And a censure is a public rebuke, just so our audience will know, by your colleagues in the Congress. They're trying to take it a step further to try to remove him from committees and everything, but they have not done that yet. But a censure is really a public rebuke. He keeps his committees, he keeps his standing and all of that. And I wish that more people were concerned about the type of decorum that leaves people hungry and homeless, unhoused. I wish people were more concerned about the type of decorum that refuses to increase the federal minimum wage in the United States of America that has been stuck at $7.25. And if you look at the sub minimum wage, that's about $2 and some change. The sub minimum wage, those are the people who serve us our food in our restaurants. I wish people cared about that type of decorum that would not allow folks who desire to collectively bargain on the job or form unions. That's the kind of stuff. And why can't we make the requisite investments in this country to deal with the homeless crisis? It would take about $20 billion to house the unhoused in this country, but yet nobody is outraged about that. But you want to be outraged about Representative Al Green, who stood up and is willing to take the consequences, as he has said over and over again, for poor people in this country, for otherly abled people in this country who benefit from Medicaid. It is absolutely immoral. I mean, that is one of the strongest ways that we can describe, Dr. West, what is happening in that Congress in this moment. Hold that thought, Doc. When we come forward, you're gonna jump right on in. You're listening to Truth Time.
KBLA 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project.
Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Oh, could this vintage store be any cuter?
Right? And the best part? They accept Discover.
Accept Discover? In a little place like this? I don't think so, Jennifer.
Oh, yeah, huh? Discover's accepted where I like to shop. Come on, baby, get with the times.
Right. So we shouldn't get the parachute pants?
These are making a comeback. I think.
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
This is where love and truth meet.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
You're listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner.
Beautiful indeed. Our remaining 3 minutes, Doc, I want to give some of that time over to you. I want to say that 10 Democrats stood with those Republicans and voted to censure Representative Al Green. Your thoughts, Doc?
No, it's just sad to see that we're fighting against American terrorism, against Black people. Selma, that's what that was about. And yet we can't say a mumbling word about U.S. sponsored Israeli terrorism in Gaza, so that the again, the moral inconsistency and the cowardliness really begins to be undeniable. And once you lose your moral authority, then you lose the ability to attract anybody who's got real deep integrity. And that's very much where we are when it comes to leaderships. And it gets just a matter of interest and agenda. So everybody's there for their interest and agenda. Where is the moral fire and power so that you're consistent across the board?
Yeah, we need that. We got to have that. And so as people think about how they can be a change agent in this moment, over the span of Truth Time, we've been talking about those ways that people can do it. You don't have to have a fancy title to be able to make that difference. Substance over symbols, or symbols matter. Substance matters more. I'm thinking about in my Nina notes a quote that somebody once said, that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that is the moment that we are in. I think that is the moment that we're always in when we're looking to expand human capacity for good. If we want to go far, we must go together. We can never leave a sister or brother behind. We are all in this together. Working class people from all backgrounds. We must never forget this. I want you to live on purpose and to remember that titles are good, but purpose is better. Live on purpose. You have been listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.